Ladies and gentlemen, I have hit a milestone as a commentator, as for the first time, somebody I have covered made a video responding to my commentary on them. And it was not Carmen Ryder, it was not Neko Koda, it was not Foxwell, instead it was Akumu. Specifically in the form of his video, the SCC and the Pronoun Crusade. Also, I couldn't help but notice that your thumbnail has Digital Tie in it, despite the fact that Digital Tie has not associated with the SCC for years. Now, to make this a little easier to understand, I'm going to be doing some things. The first thing is I'm not going to be using my normal background. I'm going to be changing my background to this picture of a campfire I found from Google Images. By the way, let me know what you guys think of this background. I may continue to use it in the future, who knows. I am also going to be cutting out anything from Akumu's video that I'm responding to in the video that Akumu is responding to. Basically, you won't see any clips from his video, The Coping Coda. It will just be what I said in my commentary on him and his response, in hopes of making this commentary a little less confusing and a little shorter. So, let's begin!
If you've seen my Coping Coda video talking about Neko Koda going on a fucking spiel about pronouns to Kumo-san and coping about our debate, then you're in luck. A SCC slideshow commentator did a response to it. His video is about 6 minutes and 50 or so seconds. Now, one of the things that I love about the video, just early on to tell you all because it's beautiful, is he takes issue with the fact that I used Neko Koda while talking about the SCC, that I lumped Neko Koda in with the SCC.
The community that Neko does not associate with, but okay.
And Doodles even subtweeted about this same thing right after this guy's video. The irony here is that he takes issue with me using Neko Koda to represent their behaviors, because Neko Koda isn't in the SCC, but then he goes out of his way to do the same type of shit Neko Koda does as an SCC member.
Okay, well that doesn't prove anything. You said Neko Koda was in the SCC, she's not. The fact that I, someone who is in the SCC, agrees with her in this one situation doesn't mean that she is. You've made a video responding to Neko Koda. I've made multiple videos responding to Neko Koda. I'm in the SCC. Would it therefore be correct to say that by responding to Neko Koda, you're doing something that happens in the SCC because you're a member of it? Obviously not. That would be ridiculous.
Proving the very point. But the cream of this crop comes from the fact that Doodletones also lumped Neko Koda into their little community in his video talking about the SCC, in the thumbnail and in the video itself.
Yeah, and Neko commented on that video and said, quote, "So I already told Susie in private, but I want to leave this here. While I don't have beef with anyone in the community, I prefer not to associate myself with any one community. Nothing against the SCC, really just a personal thing."
But if I do it to make a point about their little community, my point is invalid.
No, Doodletones was equally as wrong to call Neko Koda a member of the SCC as you are. And side note, you'd think somebody who does not like Doodletones would have an easier time comprehending the idea that Doodletones was just wrong in this one instance.
But also, he then goes and does the same thing that Neko Koda was doing, which is why I used Neko Koda as a point of reference.
So you used Neko Koda as a point of reference in your original video because you knew that I, in the future, was going to make a video responding to you, where I make similar points along the lines of what she's made? Well, if that's the case, first off, that would mean you can see the future, and in that case, I'd recommend you use it for something a little less lame. Seriously, you can predict future lottery winnings, and you're wasting it messing with the SCC. I just don't get that. But even then, if this behavior really is so widespread among the SCC, that does not answer the question as to why your example was somebody who does not associate with it. What you're basically telling me is this behavior is so widespread, yet you couldn't even come up with an example within the community of it occurring until after you made your original video, because somebody responded to your original video. Do you see the issue with acting like this behavior is as widespread as you claim it is? Okay, first off, Neko never used the word problematic once in the clip you played. Second off, yeah, that's not an attempt to control your speech. Like, even if she did,
that wouldn't be an attempt to control your speech, that would be her criticizing your speech. You can go around and misgender every single person you come across for all I care. However, I'm going to call you stupid for attempting to do that. I won't attempt to control you. I will make fun of you, though.
I don't know what it is with this fucking community of theirs and all of them sounding the exact same, whether they all talk the same and pronounce things the exact fucking same or their voices just sound the exact fucking same. It is really, really odd. There was Alexander's Worldly Voice, fucking Toganini Merdwebly.
Oh. Ah, man.
Those are the main two that I can think off the top of my head. Since this went over your fucking head, let me explain it. Neko Koda has repeatedly taken issue with the wrong pronouns used and is demanding in the video for either the proper pronouns to be used or for no pronouns to be used at all, or use they, them.
That is what Koda originally said. I'm following so far.
Literally, his own words were, if you don't want a gender debate, then don't use any pronouns at all.
Yeah, if you don't want people to respond to things you are saying, don't say things you know they're going to respond to. If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen.
Ah, yes, Neko was losing her shit by calmly suggesting that you don't misgender Carmen. Even if you think the criticism is stupid, it's no more flipping your shit than you're doing right now. For that matter, what Neko's doing is no more an attempt to control anyone's speech than what you're doing right now. So, are you attempting to control people's speech? Are you flipping your shit? I'm seriously wondering.
The problem with your little comparison is that Neko Koda was saying, hey, you don't use the proper pronouns. You don't use any at all.
Again, yes, I'm perfectly aware as to what she said. You do not have to remind me.
Basically saying, if you're not going to use the preferred gendered pronouns, don't use any pronouns at all. Or don't use gendered ones.
I believe you. Don't worry. You don't have to keep repeating it.
That's his fucking argument. So he's trying to control speech. Not that he's actually doing it. He's taking issue with speech and saying, hey, if your speech isn't the way I want it to be, just don't do it.
Yeah, you normally state your disagreement with something in hopes of getting the person doing that thing to stop doing it. That is incredibly true.
That's his fucking argument. Unlike mine, which was both parties can refer to the individual as they see fit.
You forgot the part that I was actually referring to, which was you essentially saying that nobody should respond to any party referring to a person, quote, as they wish. Your video didn't exist to justify misgendering Carmen Ryder. It existed to essentially say that we shouldn't even be discussing if it's okay to misgender Carmen Ryder in response to somebody misgendering Carmen Ryder.
So how am I controlling speech if I'm allowing people of both parties within the situation to refer to people the way they want to?
Because you're adding the caveat that neither party is allowed to respond to the pronouns used by the other party, therefore making any conversation on why said pronouns are used impossible. That is controlling speech. That is limiting what can be conversed about and debated. If everybody is free to say, but nobody is free to respond, then a conversation cannot occur. It's really that simple.
Respect Akumu's opinion. Oh, also, for transgender allies like myself.
He's a transgender ally, guys. He's got to get that fact out there. That's everybody's business. Everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to know.
Or for transgender people in most cases, like Neko Koda, the idea of transgender women being women and transgender men being men is not a belief, it's a fact, as far as we're concerned.
The way he says that is just, as far as we're concerned. I don't know what it is about it, but that's just fucking hilarious. Regardless of whether or not you're a group of people that have a belief, just because you're a group of people that believe in this, treat it like a fact does not make it a fact.
That is completely true. And completely irrelevant to my point. That point being that it's misleading to present this as a dispute over opinions when it's a dispute over facts. even in your debate with Neko Koda, which I watched about an hour of before I just couldn't take it anymore. That's not insulting Akumu specifically, by the way. That debate in general was just a terrible viewing. You say you're basing your pronoun use off of what is objective, or what can be factually proven. Just as I base my pronoun use on what I believe the objective evidence shows. Now, if you disagree, you think I'm misinterpreting the evidence or I'm misinformed or whatever it is, for any reason out there, you think I'm just wrong. That is fine. Again, this is the internet. But what I expect you to do is then present an argument that I can listen to and respond to, or even change my mind if it's persuasive. Don't just sit there and say, well, I have a belief. No shit, I realize that. Are you gonna explain why you have it, or are you just going to keep saying you have it like that in of itself is an accomplishment?
Just because you treat something in that specific way doesn't inherently mean it's that specific way. Whether you treat it as a fact or not doesn't really matter, because you need objective evidence to prove that it's a fact.
You already said that. You don't need to continue on with this point.
Similar to how believing you are something doesn't inherently mean that you are that something, just because you believe something is a fact doesn't make it a fact.
I never said believing something made it a fact, but okay.
Because again, you need objective evidence. A perfect example.
You really don't need to give an example, dude. Everybody gets your point by now. You've repeated it like 4 times already.
Flat earthers believe the earth is flat.
Riveting analysis on Akumu's part.
And treat their belief as a fact. And they also mock those that support the scientific evidence that tells us that it's a globe. Because they treat it like it's a fact, does that make it a fact? No, of course not. So clearly, you need some sort of evidence to support your argument. Now here's a legitimate fact. Kamen Rider and Neko Koda are both males, and even Neko Koda has acknowledged this as well. Your belief that trans women are women and trans men are men is a sociological theory popularized by sites like fucking Tumblr, and it's built on the pretense that gender is a social construct, despite literally everything in every human society that has to do with words being a social construct.
So, throughout this entire video, the only argument you present against the idea that gender is a social construct is that a lot of things are social constructs. Everything that has to do with words is a social construct. This is like me saying that the word aardvark does not have an A in it because a lot of words have A's in them. That doesn't make any sense.
If you disagree with that, that is fine. This is the internet. There are millions of people who are completely on your side. But don't sit here and act like this is something that everybody involved considers to be nothing more than a silly dispute over opinions.
It's not really about respecting my opinion. Whether or not you respect the fact that I support scientific fact doesn't really matter, because with or without your respect, it's still scientific fact. Science doesn't need your respect, and it doesn't need you to believe in it for it to be true. Plenty of people believe the Earth is flat. They may not believe that the Earth is a globe, but objectively speaking, it's a globe.
You quite literally just said this. Oh, and in both cases, you had the issue of why say 10 words when 50 will do. This video is about 15 minutes long. I can't find a justification for it to be much longer than 10, honestly. Especially considering the only reason why the video is a quarter hour in the first place is because Akumu keeps repeating the same points he's consistently dragging out.
It's about respecting the disagreement. I never once said you had to respect me or respect my opinion. I said respect the fact that they disagree.
So it's not respect Akumu's opinion, it's respect the fact that people hold different opinions than I do, including Akumu. Well, what do you even mean by respect at this point? I acknowledge the fact that there are people who disagree with me, but I'm not going to inherently respect somebody for doing something that takes no effort, like holding an opposite view of mine, just as I wouldn't respect someone for doing something that takes no effort, like holding the same view as mine. I respect people who have informed and thoughtful opinions that they can back up and that can be argued against. I do not believe that opinions hold inherent value on their own. I'm sorry, I don't. Now, obviously, the bar for what makes an opinion worth respecting changes depending on what the issue being discussed is. However, I do not respect people who either base their opinions off of misinformation, or, in the case of Akumu here, won't even really explain why they hold this opinion outside of vague statements and the occasional acknowledgement that other people also hold it. Congratulations! Other people think the same as you. Are you going to present an argument anytime soon?
Akumu, I am going to go around and say you are a non-binary squirrelkin.
Not too bright, folks.
And if you disagree and say you are not that thing, I'm just going to inform you that that is what you believe, and I have what I believe. Because, as we all know, the definition of belief is thing that cannot be criticized.
If you want to call me a non-binary squirrel, go right ahead. You have free speech. Now, here's the funny thing about your comparison and your talking point. First, your comparison is okay. We have one situation where some people refer to a male with female pronouns because he self-identifies as a woman. And people who disagree with that refer to the male with male pronouns because he's male. Now, you're comparing that to calling a male human a non-binary squirrel.
Not too fucking bright.
But I have a funny. Just like a male who identifies as a woman can be proven to be male, a human who identifies as a squirrel can be proven to be human.
So, essentially, that statement would have nothing to do with beliefs, which was my entire point in the first place.
Overall, when it comes to the SCC and gender-related stuff, for years now, they have been crusading with this shit. In fact, these same fucking crusades over pronouns happened during the Alt-CC versus Neo-CC days, with several people having to put up with these fucking neo-commentators complaining and bitching over pronouns.
Before I go into this, I want to make this clear. Believe it or not, I'm not actually upset about the sheer fact that you even dared to call Mama Doodles a he, or the accursed Doodle Diapers nickname.
Now, Darkscythe, who was a part of the Alt-CC, even countered a similar talking point exactly to this in a large video criticizing the neo-commentary community.
And that's not me being a bigot. She, he, it, right here, only talks about there being two genders, so I'm gonna call him he because the customer is always right.
So you would have to call an actual tranny by their preferred pronouns, but an actual woman by a factually incorrect one?
Now you might be wondering, why am I bringing up the Alt-CC versus Neo-CC days? That's the past. After all, that's what everyone does when you criticize fucking Mama Doodletones.
It's because I haven't mentally matured in the slightest in the past 5 years, and therefore have a very hard time getting new information.